There we go. Welcome to today's live stream. Here we are again, once again, CEO Zones. I'm Bill Forster, and we have our guest today, Dr. Jay Rains, who is a absolute expert on all things culture, leadership. Has clients like Toyota, Moog, some of the Tenneco family in the automotive world. Those of you that might have a Chick-fil-A in your local area, in your backyard, he works with Chick-fil-A at the local level. And today he's come up with a topic that, even as I typed it in the chat, I kind of giggled. Culture made simple. So, Jay, maybe give us just a little bit more of your background. I know you have a book coming out, so give us just that little bit of the beginning as some of the slow comers join us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill, for having me on the show. I've thoroughly enjoy our relationship and glad to be a partner in CEO Zone's contributor content partner. So, a little bit of background. I was in the nonprofit world for a while, then moved to India. That's kind of everybody's story, right? You move overseas. I started a leadership development company in India in 2010, started that process. And so that's where I was able to cut my teeth on organizational development and helping teams build their leaders. And so when we ended up back in the US in 2017, I retooled the business, in a fresh way, started Leaders Q at that time. We call it Leaders Q coaching. And so started building a team. I'll show and introduce them in just a little bit, but start building a team of executive coaches to help organizations with culture and execution and just that whole emotional world of emotional intelligence and behavior. And so just been having a lot of fun with that since then.
Okay. Uh, so, with a topic like that, I know yesterday we did a special live stream for Chick-fil-A operators about their leadership
Yeah.
model, their performance model. But today we're more focused on CEO Zones, our community, where they're a public company CEO is an easy way to say it, or they have a billion in revenue or larger. And I can't believe everyone didn't kind of snicker when they said culture made simple.
Right.
So,
That
uh,
it's a tall order, but I'm going to deliver.
but you're wow. Okay, set the expectation and over deliver,
Over deliver. That's what we're
over
going to do
deliver.
today.
Okay. Well, I'll let you jump right in then. Let's see where it goes.
Absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead and take me back to let's get to the first slide. Sorry, I had this started in the wrong spot. Just get way back here. This is just yeah, Leaders Queue. Already introduced that, and kind of to jump right into that topic. Is culture, does culture feel squishy or strategic to you? And that's kind of the beginning question that I see CEOs, business owners wrestle with. They hear this word culture and they think, my goodness, that's got a lot of tentacles to it. It in like to your point, Bill, it just feels like it's just has a lot of pieces and parts, and it's really hard to get our hands on our strategically get our mind wrapped around it. And so what I want to show today is a way to really melt culture down into three aspects. And the reason I put this slide on the screen is because this helps us understand two of those three. Um, so you have think about the people around you in your organization that are very results driven, right? Now, because they're so results driven and you appreciate that, you like that they hit their targets. However, you may not like how they run over people around them, right? And so you may wrestle with that, like, how do we manage the aftermath of this results person or this results team? Because man, they hit their targets, but they hit a lot of other things along the way, and we have to clean up. And then there's those teams or those individuals that are so relational oriented. That should be one word there, relationships. So they're so relational oriented that they kind of forget to hit their targets. And we're glad to have them around because they do add to the feel good culture and the connectedness and the engagement of the team, but not always engagement toward the goals. And so, I, Mark Miller, we and I are friends, the mutual friend of Mark Miller, he's written a lot about this because he's, you know, written a lot about this through Chick-fil-A and his tenure there. And he points this out, this struggle between these two aspects. So what I want to give you today is a tool that will help you navigate this and actually reach the and. The most important word on this page is and. It's not either or, it's and. We've got to find a way to do both. We really need people to be engaged and love what they do and be a part of this culture where people are excited, they enjoy it, they're in it for a long time. We want long tenured people. It just, for all the reasons we want that. We want people engaged in the mission, vision, values, all of that, but we also need them to hit the targets and even make targets. And so I want to show you how we put this together. But just a little bit, Bill, you'd asked about our team.
Yep.
I put together a team of executive coaches from all different backgrounds, and they come with expertise in coaching. They're very good at treating the client, treating the people that we talk to. When we go into organization, we treat each person we're talking to as the expert. We're not experts in your industry. We're experts in getting you to see your industry more clearly. And so we want to help guide them with training, in our own training of professional coaching, to help people get to those self-realizations, that clarity, that focus. And so but we've also been listening along the way to the struggles of executives and business owners. And so the tool I'm going to share with you today is, as we've been coaching people, we've realized there's something we can give you. And I'm writing a book about it now, Bill. It'll come out here in the next couple of months.
Yep.
Called Culture Brand. And this tool simplifies the culture question. It makes culture winnable, strategic. It gives you the ability to hit, to win together. And so like I said, we've been around the country. We've worked with organizations, as you can see across our map here, that we've been learning from real people in real situations, and we want to offer what we've learned to the world. So today, I want to help you think about how you could develop your culture brand. And so I'm going to give you a thumbnail sketch of the book that's coming out here in the next couple of months, and also get you on the waiting list for that book. And then come and speak to your organization about this and keynotes in various ways, however I might help your team think about culture in a very simple way. But what's the problem? The problem is people are in the organization, and I'm sorry, I guess I didn't test this out on the screen. So this was supposed to be levels. Think about levels in an organization. You have various levels that people are growing through, maybe a new team member all the way up through the C-suite. And we kind of tend to think of that as people get promotions, they gain skills, they've been here a while. We might say, wow, so-and-so's been here for 3 years. If we want to keep them, we probably better give them a promotion. And unfortunately, what a lot of organizations are doing is moving people through this line of leaders based on skills and tenure. But I don't believe it's a line. I believe it's a ladder. I believe people are, if we could think of this as a ladder, that yes, there is skills and tenure. We need to measure that as people grow through the organization. But there's another line that we should be measuring, and that is called behavior and emotional intelligence. Now, you can see my little guy falling off the ladder. What we've noticed in organizations is when people fall off the ladder, and I know you've experienced this, where people they get elevated to a level and then they fall off. They almost always fall off the left side of the ladder. It's those behavioral, emotional intelligence, misunderstanding the culture, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, various behavioral issues or cultural misfits are reasons for people to be exited. That's just industry standard. That's what we're running into everywhere we go. And so the question is, how do you measure that side? Now, there's all kinds of psychometrics, and we use DISC profiles and other psychometrics, personality assessments. Those are very helpful, but it all but it's almost like people are saying, well, this is my personality, you just need to deal with it. And we're getting that impression from employees that, yeah, I'm a results person, deal with it. And there's not a way, or well, we found a way to help you also measure them against the culture that you're all aiming for, and to be very clear about the culture that you're aiming for. Now, all of you, probably everyone on this call, has a list of values for your organization. You probably have established your, the core ideology, as Jim Collins talks about, that, your mission, vision, values, all of that. Your purpose is clear. You probably have that on the wall, but how often do you see it on the wall but not in the walk of the people around you? That those values are being violated on a regular basis, and they're not cascading all the way through the organization. And so how do we measure that? How do we enact ways for everyone to live out the values? So just imagine someone's climbing this ladder. They've got their right foot up on the executive rung, right? And yet their behavior is two steps down on the culture rung. They're out of balance. We gave them a promotion over here on the right that doesn't match with their ability and leadership, or their identity and the culture on the left. And we see them actually undermining the very culture that we've all agreed that we're trying to build.
Mhm.
So we want to give you a way, and I'm going to show you how this works. I'll give you a way to measure that side. We've developed tools for each side of this, but the one I want to focus on is this results, team, and character tool that I have up here on the top left. And so here's how this works. Remember, results and relationships. That's the goal. What we found is that's two parts of it, but there's a third part. Do you remember Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum"? He was the ancient Greek philosopher that says, "Give me a lever big enough and long enough and a fulcrum to push against, and I can move the earth. I can move the world." So what the tool I want to give you is the third part of this is the fulcrum. And let me show you how all of this fits together to where the people that are results oriented can push against that fulcrum and move their relationship side, or the people that are relational can push against that fulcrum and win on the results side. So we want to give them the ability to win through the strength that they're bringing to the table. So we work with teams to help them develop what we call a culture brand. And the idea behind this is that not only is this a three-part tool that works everywhere, but a fun way to approach it is to think, well, what could be unique for our organization that really speaks to our DNA, that speaks to our way to say these three things. And so what are the three things? The three things are results, team, and character. That's it. Results, team, and character. Now, you might be saying, I would imagine there are people on this call. They're like, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure if this is like the heart of culture. Let me ask it this way. I believe I could walk into a library, public library, or a leader's library, and I believe I could pull every leadership book off the wall if they would let me. I might need to do this without the librarian's permission, or with the librarian's permission, right? I believe I could pull off hundreds of leadership books, maybe thousands of leadership books that are in that library. I believe I could organize them onto 3 tables with these headings on each table. I think I could take good to great and put it on the results table, right? I think I could take extreme ownership and put it on the character table. I think I could take Katzenbach and Smith's books, all of their books about teaming, and I could put it on the team table, leadership. And so you think about all the books you're reading, that you've read, or the podcast you're listening to. I haven't found a 4th category. And so when we find this meta narrative, these 3 things, this 3-legged stool that fits in every environment, then we really have something special, and we can use it to our advantage to make things very simple for everyone. If you're wanting your culture to cascade through the organization, one of the success factors that is required for it to catch on is that it is simple. For it to catch, for it to pass from one level or generation, or even for it to pass from, maybe you're a founder, you founded the company, you've grown this company, you're about to hand it off to another generation in your family or another generation of executives. How do you hand off the culture? It's got to be catchy enough and simple enough to make that transition. So in the comments, go ahead and push against me. If you can think of a 4th category, tell me now, because the book is about to go out and be published, and I'm running out of time to change it. So, but the nice thing about this is that I think when you're able to put these 3 together, and I did it as a Venn diagram on purpose because they have to meet in the middle. It can't be all about one of these. We can't just show up with character. We've got to, businesses don't survive if we don't get results. Businesses can limp along if we don't do team, but they don't flourish without team. And no one really trusts a business if it doesn't have true character. So trust is built in here, synergy is built in here, and also the mission of the entire organization is truly only accomplished when all 3 of these overlap. So, and it's not like we can say to one person, okay, you handle results, these people over here will handle team. We can't just delegate these 3 out. We actually all have to be rowing the boat together toward this epicenter here, because that's where the power really comes from. Let me dive in a little bit deeper on this idea. So let's just imagine, and now it's when you may start putting some names. You know some people that will fit these categories, okay? And I'm not saying they're people you need to get rid of. I'm just saying this is a diagnostic to understand what they might need next from you as a leader. But let's look at that individual contributor there on the bottom left. What makes a person an individual contributor? Well, they're a contributor. They are dependable. They show up, they clock in, they do their work, they get their stuff in on time. But we're missing an X factor from them. We're missing a multiplication. They're not developing anyone else. They're not really investing in another person. And so we get the person and their work, but I call them kind of a 1+. They're just additional to the team. There's no X from them. We're not getting 10X from them through there's no layers of leaders around them. People aren't drawn to them to learn. And so, or if they are, there's still a barrier there. This person is an individual contributor. And there are people on this call that lean that way. There's nothing wrong. That's kind of how we're made. Let's go ahead and just be honest. We might lean that way. In fact, I want to say it right now. Nobody is 100% on all 3 of these. We all have a bent toward probably, for sure, 1, probably 2. We're probably really strong in 2 of these, and we all struggle in a 3rd. So let's just kind of be honest about that. I'm I'm more on the team and character. I'm, the results thing is the thing I have to work hard at. And so now let's flip over to the other side, liked but not driven. What if they are teaming and character type people, but they don't set goals? They're not really achieving the targets that we've all set. Well, we all like having them on the team, but they're not rowing the boat quite as hard as everybody else. And we sense that, but we don't have a reason to get them off the team because they add value, but we really would like for them to add more value in the results side. And so this is something that gives you a way to diagnose each person and help them move toward the center to be on mission with you. The third category is probably the most difficult to deal with, and that's the one where they're low in character. When you have someone that's low in character, you know, Chick-fil-A, we love working with Chick-fil-A organizations across the country, Chick-fil-A owner operators. They are known for hiring for character because they say we can train the rest, but we can't necessarily change character. So we hire for character and train the rest. And there's a lot of value in that idea and that statement, because of the three of these, that's probably, I think, the toughest one. It's a heart issue, right? It's an attitudinal piece. It's do they take ownership in their mistakes? Do they do they are they dependable with the things that we're asking them to do? And there's just so much more about the character. And so the problem, though, is if they're low in character, what we have found is, as Pat Lencioni describes this in Ideal Team Player, he says they're political. They divide the team. You have someone that gets results and influences some. They're not influencing everybody. They have some team skills, but they're low in character. Then people are, some will follow, some won't, and it ends up dividing the team. So take a minute. Think about the last person that you exited from the organization. Where does their name go on this page? They fell off the left side of the ladder because of at least one of these low areas. Now, you might have some that are only strong in one. And if they are results, they're a bulldozer. They're just running over people. There's a lot of destruction. Maybe they're a team type person. That's all they have. They don't have character, don't have results. And they're just a charmer. They just kind of charm their way into different parts of the organization. Or maybe they're that person that you're like, well, we don't want them on our team. Would you like them on your team? But they're great. They're nice people. Let's just pass them around. And so these people get passed around. And so you find them as a pawn. Pat Lencioni is the one that helped me see these various aspects of these, and he talks about it in his book, where in Ideal Team Player, where he talks about the hungry, humble, smart person. Hungry, as I see it, as that results thing. Smart, I see as the team part of this, and then humble as the character part. And that's their way to describe it. What we're doing with teams is helping them find their three words that describe it, and it fits your DNA, it fits your culture. So this is how the culture brand works. Now, as we've done this with dozens and dozens of organizations, we've also learned that there's some more depth here. And I want to show you another layer to this. Here's a team that put together, they chose strive, serve, and show to represent these three words. And so they'll walk around like, man, we love how you strive. And they'll kind of hashtag strive. And then they'll talk about serve, and they'll talk about show. And that's their, by the way, don't you know, leadership is really language. And when we're creating a culture of leadership, it's really important to use language in our favor and pack a lot of meaning in a small word. So when this team hears strive, they hear months and years of examples of what strive means. It's a growing library for them around that word. But we've noticed that there's kind of at least three subcategories in these. So let's look at a couple of those. So under strive, we've noticed that, we're talking about here someone who's driven, goal oriented, someone who strives for excellence, and someone who is willing to hold others accountable. Now, this isn't the I'm accountable part of accountability. This is I'm willing to hold Bill, I'm willing to hold you accountable, right? And
Yep.
so what I've done is divided accountability into two parts. So this is that part where you do know people that are able to hold people accountable and they're not willing to be accountable. So we know it's divided. And so then what I would have them do, and the download you're going to be able to do at the end is this 9-part assessment. It's written in a format where you can just print it. And then what I would ask you to do is rate yourself 1 to 10 in each of these 9 categories and create a score for yourself. The low scores are the opportunities you have to grow and skill yourself and expand and maybe read some more. In fact, I think you'll find that if you're a results person, you're probably reading more results books. You might need to read more teaming books. If you're a teaming person, you may just love reading teaming books, and you probably ought to read some more results books. And so it's a way to dial in more in the area of your weakness. Um, so you can skill up in that area because it's not a natural bent for you. And so this self-evaluation is something then you could do one-on-one. In your one-on-ones, you could do this with a vice president, one of your executives, and say, okay, you do it and I'll do it, and then you trade papers.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you say, man, I see, yeah, you're I agree, you're rating high on drive excellence, holds others accountable, and I appreciate how you're willing to take feedback and you're dependable and you take ownership. And I see here that your marking encourages others like at a 5. And then instead of saying, yep, I agree, and nailing them on it, they've admitted it. Isn't that beautiful that they've admitted, I struggle with that, because you've made it a safe place. And so then you can say, okay, so what could I do to help you set a goal over the next 2 weeks to grow in encouraging others? So you've now entered into a beautiful developmental conversation that they've opened the door for. So this becomes a coaching tool. There's a lot in the book about, well, what if they score this wrong? What do you do? I go into detail about how to handle those situations too. But what I'm hoping with this is, and what I've seen happen is, this lowers that barrier of entry of the difficult conversation that we want to have. And so I don't have to go to Bill and say, Bill, you're terrible in encouragement, which actually you're a very good encourager. But if I had to, if that was the worst thing about you and I had to come to you with that, then
Yep.
I'm putting you on the defensive. And what I want to do is I want you to self-disclose where you struggle so that I can be then invited to help you. And then as the the top, let's say you're the top leader, you're on this call, you're the top leader in the organization. It's also good to be transparent. And this is an opportunity for you to show some transparency. Hey, I struggle in this area. This isn't my thing. I'm not great at it. Here's what I'm trying to do about it. And so it opens the door for culture needs a safe place to grow. And part of making a safe place for culture, good, healthy culture, is transparency. So this is how that works on a team. Again, I told you, hope I'm delivering on my promise, Bill. I said I want to make culture simple. And this
Simple.
is the simplest I know how to make it. And I also think about how simple this is. Even if you took away the 9 parts, this gives you a way to talk about the entire organization to anybody you talk to, from the most forward facing member of the organization, the most customer facing. You could have all kinds of great conversations around these 3 parts of the culture, and highlight them, maybe celebrate how they do so well at 1 or 2 of these, and make them as models for what this looks like. I'll tell a quick story though. We did this with an organization, and the owner just bought in deep, and he decided he was actually going to be a part of orientation, and this was his presentation for any new members. So when they hired, he would take this segment to say, here's who we are, and this is how we behave around here. This is how we do our mission. Well, roll forward a few weeks, and one of those new hires was on, at work one day, and one of the managers, and all this is pretty new. So this was fairly new. We're like 4 or 5 months into the whole process of them using this, but one of the managers misbehaved toward her. I mean, it was harsh. There were just some things that they did in the moment, and this new hire, this potentially timid, few weeks into the job, looking at someone who's more tenured, who has more seniority, who's kind of a key holder in the business. And she looks at him and says, hey, how does that, kind of pointing at him and his behavior, how does that fit our culture? And this owner called me up and he said, it's working. Not only are we cascading it down, but they're actually holding accountable up to the organization. What a beautiful thing for a culture to be so clear that the newest team member has the courage and clarity to call out bad behavior and have the support of this is what we agreed on. So accountability has to go up and down the ladder for this to work. This culture has to fit in the C-suite and on the factory floor. And it has to be the same. Now it has different levels of responsibility, different applications, but it's all the same idea and story together that we're on mission. We're not exempt from any part of this. So I'll kind of wrap it up there. This is the download. You can click on that. Bill will send out a link for this too, and you can use this. There's, of course, we'll also put you on the list. If you download this, we'll put you on the list and let you know when the book comes out. And I just want to see if there's any questions. I'd love to hear any reaction to this.
So a couple questions for me, since the others would need to put in the comments and type them in. So I'll be the audible audience here. So it's your website is jrains.com. That's how they get a hold of you. Probably learn more about Leaders Q. Maybe dig into some of the coaching aspects of what you do, things like that. But that's great. But could you go back one slide? I think it was.
Absolutely.
Right here. So you're intermixing different three wheels, I'll call it. And,
right.
And you mentioned the word 9-box or 9-box cross, Jack Welch crossed my book, gray matter there for a second.
Sure.
What is the overlay that they're going to get, or how does that look? Because we've seen them 3 at a time there, right? So
right. So the one previous to this was, I think we talked about Strive, Serve, Show. That was this is a customized culture brand. Remember, we talked about it being a culture brand, and so the idea behind a brand is let's talk about your leadership in such a special way that it actually becomes your brand. And so right. The branding idea is that you get to pick your 3 words, and I help you get there. So we want it to really resonate with the culture. I had one that he's kind of a cowboy CEO, and he chose toughness for his results side. That just fits. Yep. It made sense. So this next one where you were pointing out, this particular team landed on relentless as the results word, synergy as their teaming word, and trust as their character word. Now, when they talk about relentless, that becomes a whole bucket full of ideas for the team that, relentless means we're going to hit our targets, or relentless means that we're going to strive for excellence, or relentless means that I'm going to give you some tough feedback and hold you accountable. And right. So these words are pointing you in the kind of behavior that we need delivered.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and an example of that would be, what if we're relentless? What if we're really good at teamwork and being dependable, but we're not striving for excellence? Is the customer going to be happy with the result? They might love that we have a great work environment. They may celebrate that. They may celebrate that we're, they can trust us, but that trust is going to start eroding if we're not delivering an excellent, relentless product. So these three have to work together in order for us to deliver on the mission.
Okay. All right. I
Yeah.
like it. So when will the book be out? I know that we've talked about it and it's
Yep.
moved forward
So I'm
action.
actually designing title cover or book cover this week. And then January is going to be, we're aiming for January as our launch parties. So mid-January.
Okay. Mid-January. All right. And we would love to help you with that when
Thank
that's
you.
as some of our other content partners have learned, we have the capability to sell some books. So that's good. And we don't keep a penny because it just is
Okay.
fun. Yep. So
Thank
we're
you.
glad to do that. And CEOs typically want to know what are the latest and greatest, but yet not. But what's the latest and greatest on one of those traditional topics? Because just like you've mentioned other authors today that you've learned from, take all your learnings, compact that between Mark, between Pat, other people, and then you have a new book that kind of puts several things together.
I feel like I'm standing on their shoulders. Really, they've lifted us all up to new heights of leadership and understanding. I and and I see them as people who are kind of pushing us all forward. And then once we learn that, then that gives us a different view, and we see something new, and that's when we want to capture it into a book. So I wouldn't want to think that this book supersedes anything they've ever written, but I hope it supports and helps make it more practical and usable.
Excellent, excellent. Um, so we are, where's the clock? There's the clock. We're about 35, 40 minutes in. I don't see any questions again today. That is odd. And I think that's a technology problem on my side. That is not necessarily that there aren't questions there. So hopefully we can have Alexandria just double check that and let us know. We don't want to ignore anybody. And those of you listening and watching, if you've typed in a comment, I apologize, but the software has not shown it to me if you've done that. So we would not want to be rude to you. And I don't have a way to turn on people's mics either. So uh, we'll see how that goes. All right. So jrains.com. You work in all industries. You started in India. You now live in Texas, but you showed us the U.S. map. I make the assumption, due to some of your clients, that you peek up into the northern border and go up and see our friends in the north every once in a while because of those clients that I know you have. As you work inside, what's the one thing we could relate to? We're a $5 billion CEO. We've inherited possibly a bad culture, and I'm setting you up here, Jay.
Sure.
And I look at your model and I say to myself, how fast can I replicate this and build these personal relationships that start to go wider and wider and wider? And I'll use one of our mutual client friends. He has 50,000 employees. He's been in the job 112 days. How can he take your model and really make that go global and see the results of your approach? How do you do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, I was working with so I think a good example of that is an equity purchase that I worked with. And so they purchased, and this was a $200 million company, so a lot smaller than we're talking about. But I think at that scale doesn't matter with this example, because the CEO was put in place and was given, the marching orders to grow it to 500 million within X number of years, which they've done in spades. It's like they've accomplished that. I got to come in at that first moment and help them. They had actually had to reestablish their mission, vision, values. So they weren't going to go with the old stuff on the wall. They were wanting to reset, and so I helped them reset. And what they didn't know was I wanted to help them also with this. They'd never heard of culture brand before. And so now I was actually having coffee with that CEO the other day. He's like, man, it's still helping us keep dialed in on the mission because it's practical. It's easy to apply in any situation. It
Mhm.
also helps, you know, one of the difficult things in a large organization is consistency, right? So if we can do anything that says this is the standard in
Mhm.
every aspect of people, then that sets a standard that everyone can follow. So for example, now if the executive suite isn't willing to follow and live by this, then that's going to be obvious. But if they'll adopt, then it can cascade to the next level. And then every level after that, it can cascade. We can train all the way to the front, but I think they also need to see it lived out. So we train it, cascade it, and then celebrate it. And I think that's where a CEO, I've advocated that CEOs ought to become CCOs, chief culture officers.
Mhm.
That yes, there's plenty of people that, there's a lot of people that need to be a part of execution, but there's a point where I think a CEO uh, needs to be guiding execution, but probably more with their fingertips than strong holding execution.
Mhm.
And one way to guide with fingertips is by guiding culture. So if I can give you a tool that makes it very easy for you to talk about your culture on a napkin, I can get it that simple, then I think you can talk about it to the most senior member of your team to the most junior member, the newest member of your team, and it makes sense for everybody to get on board.
Mhm.
Culture is about being together, right? We don't want cultures in an organization. And the larger an organization is, the more it will tend toward cultures. I mean, I've worked with multinational organizations, and that's even harder. But if we could find a way to join together in a simple design, simpler the better. And like I said, there's not a leadership idea that doesn't fit in one of these three categories. So let's get it simple as possible. This also helps you know who belongs on your team. Because when you're hiring someone, you can look through this lens and you can think, okay, yeah, 10 out of 10 in these two areas, 9 out of 10 in these two areas. Maybe they're a 7 in the third, but I can live with that if they're willing to grow. And so you adopt them in, but you're very open with, I see a low spot here, and I expect you to grow here in this low area. So it gives you a way also to challenge growth and keep everybody centered on the culture.
Thinking about your ladder, um, I had never visualized. I naturally led organizations where we talked about those same things, but I never had visualized the ladder. So I think that's a good thing. I assume that's part of the book as well, that
It is.
the ladder is right in there. Uh, and I think you use the word sometimes we fall, but I might be guilty of sometimes pushing somebody
Well,
up.
the falling is the nice way. I mean, that's the result, right? I
Yeah.
like to say we promote them to be guests, to promote them to customer,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Uh, so I think we've come pretty close up to our 45-minute mark. Everyone can reach out to you at jrains.com. We'll all be looking forward to emails from CEO Zones about the book when it comes out. We'll probably start promoting that in December so that when you have some sales in the bag there come mid-January, we like to do that and get your marketing started for the book. Um, I don't know that we've scheduled another culture made simple or a culture webinar to the future, but we certainly would welcome you to be our guest again. And for those of you that want to learn more about Jay, on CEO Zones, our YouTube channel, we have a Meet the Speaker where Jay and I months ago kind of had a fireside chat of who are you and what do you do. what do you like to be a keynote speaker about, which culture brand is his keynote speaking. He talks about culture and leadership, character. He mentioned that one of his clients hires for character and trains the rest. So there's a lot to unpack there. But if you want to learn more about Jay from CEO Zones, both our website and our YouTube channel would have his Meet the Speaker. And that was about 45, 50 minutes. I don't remember exactly, maybe 35 to 50 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'll set an expectation less. But we just had a good conversation back and forth. Uh, on LinkedIn yesterday, you shared that your wife is very supportive of your business. I think it's your daughter is very involved in your company, and so maybe check Jay out, Dr. Jay Rains on LinkedIn as well. And with that, I know we've crossed the 45-minute mark because it just blinked red on my side. So we are very appreciative for all of you that came to the live stream and all of those that you watched the replay. And anything that CEO Zones or Dr. Rains can do for you, both websites are very easy to find. And our contact information is all over those websites. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.